All right, guys, gym offer mastery. What's up? It's Coach Will. And in this video here, guys, I want to show you how to create and build gym offers so good they sell themselves. And I kid you not, if you do things this way with anything, not just with gym offers, trying to build value to sell any product, you will have people lining up to basically sell themselves. They're basically going to just say yes at the end because the perceivable value and how you broke down the offer and how you constructed the offer and broke it down, that's what we're going to get into today. And I want to start by talking about my story. And obviously I've been there. I couldn't teach on this stuff if I haven't made the mistakes myself and haven't been around the block. So once upon a time, I too was once stuck in the trap of running discount offers and taking orders at my gym. So I've owned two gyms. One gym I opened up in 2010, and that was not my first go at business. Prior to opening up my first gym, I was actually already very successful as an entrepreneur and a business owner. I owned a multi-state landscape installation and wholesale supply company. We started a business here in Arizona, in the Phoenix area. We used to install artificial grass lawns. We were very niched down into that. Artificial grass is very popular here in the desert because people want green lawns, but they don't necessarily want to deal with the what comes along with trying to keep up a natural grass lawn in the Arizona desert and the water and the cost and the overseeding and all these things. So I saw an opportunity in the market with a product that was relatively new at the time. Artificial grass prior to this was something that it looked like, green carpet. And these products came out that looked like real grass that we all see around now. We see it on TV with professional sports. And I built that company to a $5 million a year company. And then I decided to take it multiple states, right? So I already had a pretty big track record in business. And my background prior to that business was in sales. I was actually in car sales. I was a 4-year, very well decorated and awarded salesperson for General Motors. I used to work for a GMC dealership that was one of the top 10 in the world. And I built a great book of business as an internet and fleet manager back in the early days of the internet. As far as automotive world is concerned, this was 2005 to 2008. And back then, the internet was just becoming a place to sell cars. And being a young guy at the time, I found a way to make that work for that dealership before there was really internet departments in dealerships, which is almost all they run on now. So I was very well awarded, very well paid, and had a great list of great clients, right? So I'm sharing this with you guys because I had a big background in sales and success in business prior to making this mistake, right? So anybody can make this mistake as a gym owner, even if you have a background in business. In fact, the reason why I opened my gyms, I opened my first gym in 2010 because we had moved to Southern California. I had found CrossFit. It sounded like a great way to make money. I loved doing it. I had done it for a couple of years, really enjoyed it, made all my friends that I had in California at the time. And I said, this would be awesome to run one of these businesses. And also when I noticed it was a very easy business to run at the time, the gym that I trained at, when I started at it was 2008. They literally just opened up the doors and everybody showed up and all these great people were there. And it was the greatest thing ever. And the gym owner was driving around a brand new BMW X5 when those had just come out and they were like the baller car. And man, he had always nice clothes on and all the girls in the gym were always going after him. And he just had it made and he was living in a nice house in Costa Mesa, California. He just had everything going well for him. So I said, okay, seems like this guy's got this figured out. I'm looking for a side hustle in addition to my main businesses. My main businesses were doing very well. Like I said, $5 million plus businesses per year. And I had a friend that knew that I was doing well in business and he was a CrossFit coach. And he said, hey, I want to move out to California and I want to start a gym with you. He's like, hey, I know you're doing it now. He's like, you don't have to run it. I'll run it. You just bring the money and you just help stock the place with inventory and equipment and help me get the lease and I'll run the place. I said, that sounds like a great side hustle to own one of these gyms, right? And so we did that. And guess what happened? In 2010, when we opened that gym, actually it was about 2011 when we opened that gym, the same thing happened as the gym that I started at where it literally just blew up on its own. We had 250 members within, 6 months to a year without doing a lick of marketing and a lick of sales. We were literally order takers. And at certain hours, we had to turn people away. Certain class times were so full that we couldn't take any more people. So we would start screening people out of certain class times and saying, hey, you can only join us if it's at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 p.m., at all these off-hour times, and we would fill those up too. Great problem to have, right? And as a result, me and my partner, between the two of us, I was making an extra $7,000, $8,000 a month on the side, in addition to running my main business, and he was able to make $7,000, $8,000 a month, which for a guy that was moving out west, coming from the Detroit area, that was great money compared to what he was making at the time, just fresh out of school. It was the glory days, right? And then that business went really, really well for a few years, and I decided I wanted to kind of reset. I wanted to sell my main business. I wanted to sell my share of the gym. I wanted to sell my house in California, and I wanted to move back to Arizona, and I wanted to start fresh. I was completely burned out. I did pretty well for myself, but I wasn't like necessarily in a position where I could retire, but I was very much burned out, and I wanted to kind of go back to like a grassroots kind of refresh, restart, I kind of worked myself to the bone with that company, kind of doing the hustle mode thing that so many people in their 20s do. And so 2014, 2015 comes along. I decided to move back to Arizona, which was where I was prior to California in the first place, where I met my wife, because we loved it there. We moved back and I decided to sell everything from California and open a gym there. And this is 2014 now, right? So it's not 2008, it's not 2010 anymore. This is 4 years later. Now, it was still early in the CrossFit days compared to now, but things had actually changed quite a bit. And we were kind of coming off the 2012 peak where like CrossFit, I would say, kind of hit like its peak times, right? For that. And I would say even like group fitness in general was really, if you wanted to be early for any type of group fitness gym, didn't have to be CrossFit. I'm not exclusively talking about CrossFit. I wouldn't even say I'm a CrossFit guy anymore. It was just happened to be what I did at the time. I'm speaking to all you guys as gym owners, but the group fitness trend, really, if you wanted to be early and capitalize on everything I just talked about, not having to build a real business and run ads and do marketing and sales and learn all these skills, if you just wanted to build it and they will come, 2012 and prior were like the glory days, right? Some markets, as late as 2014, 2015. And that's when I started my second gym, and it was kind of a rude awakening for me. It was kind of a rude awakening because I started that second gym, and when I moved back to Phoenix to open it, there were already gyms pretty well saturating most of the best spots of Phoenix. So Phoenix is a very, master plan city. So there only so many places you could find commercial property to rent to build a gym where the city was going to allow you. So all the gyms were bunched together in certain areas. And when I moved back, I just figured it was totally one of those like unconscious incompetence things, the Dunning-Kruger effect of like, well, I did it before. I'm just going to open it up. It's going to happen again. So I opened that second gym, and guess what? We did have a little bit of that early adopter effect where we did have probably 50 to 75 members come in the first year that without doing very much marketing. But coming from running a business, two businesses that between the two making, 7 figures plus a year, it was a rude awakening to really, after 1 year of opening the second gym, only really make like 20, 30K. Luckily, I had savings. I knew the gym wasn't going to make money right away. I was willing to be patient with it. I was willing to, take the time, unlike a lot of gym owners, to build a real solid business versus like try to just do the quick kill, right? So I was patient, but I was realizing that like it wasn't the same time anymore. We were out of that early adopter phase. We were out of that phase, and we were now kind of in the mainstream phase where most people were starting to know about CrossFit. They were already at a gym. There are already gyms in most of the most popular areas of the city I was in. And we realized that like, oh, this is kind of already been found out in this area, and we're going to have to try to find product market fit, right? Now, product market fit is one of the hardest things to do in business. In fact, where like billion-dollar companies have made their money is in being the first to find product market fit for a product, right? They're the ones that they see an opportunity, they see a market, they have a product, and they're trying to figure out how to get the market to adopt it, right? And you could say that things like CrossFit in its early days, F45, Orange Theories, other types of group fitness movements, what made them big and what created those markets in the first place is that there was a lack of product market fit with the existing gyms in the space at the time, right? Big box Globo gyms weren't really speaking to the generation coming up, the millennial generation coming up, that was kind of looking at the big box global gym scene as like not really their scene. They want, young millennials wanted community. They wanted to be around other people. They're very outgoing. The current generation, Gen Z, aren't really very outgoing, and they're really kind of introverted and don't go out and drink. Millennials were kind of the opposite. Young millennials were like, let's go out and party. Let's go out and go clubbing. Let's be out with our friends. We want to be out doing things together, right? And that was just missing, right? So CrossFit, which was one of the first things to come along back then, amidst some other things, and not to give them too much credit, they were just the first, right? They found product market fit. And as a result, they built, what was at the time, I'm not sure it's the case anymore, multiple $100 million a year brand. And as a result, all those CrossFit affiliates at the time just got to open up and eat up all that market share and make all that money, right? And they could just pay CrossFit affiliation fee to do that. The problem with that, is A, that's no longer the case, right? But B, now product market fit has been established, right? Once product market fit has been established, anybody who comes along afterwards is going to have a very, very hard time competing with the players already in the space, right? And one could also say that like in businesses where product market fit is easy, because let's be real, product market fit is easy for a gym, right? Like everybody's a customer for a gym. There's really not anybody who isn't a customer for a gym. And if you could make an argument that they aren't a customer for a gym, there probably is a gym that could be a fit for them, right? You could say, oh, someone's a paraplegic, they got disabilities. There are now gyms for those people, right? There's literally not a product market fit issue with gyms, right? For that same reason, that's why markets get saturated. Any industry where product market fit becomes easy, the ability to sell becomes increasingly more challenging as competitors enter the space, because the one thing that everybody in the space doesn't have to worry about doing is product market fit. If you open a gym, everybody's a fit, right? So the hardest thing you don't need to worry about doing, you can just open it up and worry about coaching classes. That's the idea anyways. And it's often where gyms, at least in the last 5 to 10 years, since those glory days, have really struggled with adoption, right? What they're not realizing is like, you can't just build and they will come anymore. That's not how it works, right? It's inevitable with products that have default product market fit like gyms to struggle once everybody else is in the market. So when we are making offers, we have to be persuasive and we have to build value. And the biggest thing is you have to differentiate. You have to be different, not better. The biggest mistake I see gym owners make in how they position themselves in their market is you hear them scream about how they're a better version of the same thing as the guy down the road. We're better, we're better, we're better, we're better. In a market where there is saturation, which is gyms in every market, right? Unless you're in some weird town that like has literally been in a, has been hidden away from society for the last 20 years, odds are everybody in your market is doing fitness somewhere, right? And the last thing someone wants to do, whether they're doing it somewhere or they're considering doing it somewhere, they already know the options, right? The last thing that they want to hear that's going to make them switch is a better version of the same thing, right? That's not an attractive offer. It's not a sexy offer. It's not compelling. It doesn't make me want to get up and run out of my seat. It doesn't, sure as heck doesn't make me want to cancel my gym membership, which is very painful and difficult to do, come to your gym and go through the sales process and talk to you. It's not enticing enough for me to get over that, right? It's also not enticing enough for people that maybe have been lazy and sitting on the couch, that already know where the gyms are. They've already been to some gyms. They've already failed. It's also not enticing for them to hear that you're selling the same thing, but better, because what already worked, they already thought would work for them didn't work. And if you're saying it's the same thing and better, it does not work. And that's where offer construction is super, super important. And when you start a business, this is something that like you should almost enter the business with in the first place. And one could argue this is even more important than a business plan, right? Because a business plan is just kind of a generic document you make to talk about how it would go in a perfect world based on a bunch of market research that is really just kind of status quo. What an offer actually is how you make what you're going to sell undeniably valuable, so the person at the end just really has no choice, no common sense reason not to say no, right? And if you're in a market where everybody's a fit, then realistically everybody should say yes, right? And this is the differentiator, and this is the thing that most gym owners don't do. So we're gonna jump into this real quick, and into an example I'm going to show you of how we build offers here at Big Little Gyms. And it's part of the recipe amongst many, many other things. When we put a gym on our growth track, we want to get their offer straightened out. That's one of the very first things we have them do is build what we call a value stack, right? Now, the example we're going to use here is from our client school group, our pro group. Courtney here. She's been going through our process, the Gym Offer Codex, the No Sweat Intro, and she pulled up and she was asking everybody to kind of do a review of her value stack. She said, hey, can you do a review of my value stack and my offer? Let me know what you guys think, because she went through our training and she built this and she wants to see how it hits, right? So, and that's awesome. Courtney's using the resources available to her here in the Big Little Gyms group to get feedback and build an offer that is undeniable, that is going to make it easy to sell lots of memberships without discounting anything, right? Without discounting. In fact, she's going to be able to sell the same thing for more money by doing this, okay? So I'm going to break it down and show you what it is. What a value stack is essentially building an offer where you have numerous things that have a very, very high perceived value on their own, that are all components of a program that you might already be running, right? So one of the biggest mistakes gym owners make is they take for granted the value of their own program, especially a lot of group gym owners. They'll be selling things for $100 a month, $150 a month, $200 a month. And I would say even big box gym owners that are selling $30 a month, $50 a month memberships, they often look at value as like, okay, everybody in the market's selling it for $150, I'm going to offer it for $130, and therefore I'm offering better value. Problem with that is it's perceived as a discount offer, which whenever you position yourself as a discount offer, you tend to get a client that perceives you as less legitimate, less authoritative, and generally only a low price leader, right? And generally, if you get in the race to the bottom as a low price leader, you will eventually find yourself in a position where you're not making any money, right? Because you have a cost to service all your clients, right? You have rents, you have things like that, right? So when we bring people into our gym, it's better to aim high than it is to aim low. And it's actually easier to aim high than it is to aim low if you do it this way, right? So what we do, for example, you can see here, is we take all the components of the gym's program and we build a front-end offer that uses a lot of anchoring. Now, what anchoring is, you can read, there's great books about this. One of my favorite books to read about this is Predictably Irrational by Daniel Ariely, where he talks about how in modern society, almost everywhere we go, we're being sold using these techniques. Even the things that you think are the most valuable things that you use every day are only positioned that way in your mind because of the way it's anchored, the way it's priced, the way it's presented to you. And that's what we do here, is we break out the components of a program and we place value on each of those as if they are a product themselves. At the bottom, we show the person the true value of the program, and then we show them the real price, which is some multiple lower than that. And it's not a discount because these are all things that are part of your program. It is actually the full price, if not a more inflated price of what you would normally sell it for. But when compared to the price of going and doing all these things individually on their own, it is a significant value, right? And as a result, the person values the product more, and you also make a better customer. That's the biggest mistake gym owners, one of the biggest mistakes gym owners also make in pricing their product and how they sell it and how they position it, is they kind of detract from their own value by positioning themselves as a lower value offering, right? And so they get a customer that's really kind of bought into like fickle things. They're bought into the headlines of like lose 20 pounds in 6 weeks, right? And let's be honest, most of us that run gyms live a very healthy lifestyle. Most of us live a lifestyle where like eating healthy, working out, these things aren't like things that we do. These are things that are part of who we are. I literally every day have to go work out every day because it's part of who I am. If I don't work out, I go for a walk, I go for a run, I go for a mountain bike ride. I have to move my body. It's important to me for my own mental health. It's also important to me for my own wellness and the wellness of everybody around me, because if I don't do that, that energy comes out in a lot of other ways that can sometimes be destructive, right? And that is a common shared trait amongst people that own gyms and coaches and very fit people, right? It's part of who we are. It's something we are adapting to do. But the thing is, we don't always work to understand that that's not everybody else, right? Everybody else is looking at this as like something they're going to try to adapt to do, right? So we actually want to start to break down those beliefs and understand what it takes for them to become the type of person who does the type of things that get the kind of result. And you do that by building a program and an offer that when presented, they're like, yes, I really want to do this. I want to be the kind of person. I want to immerse myself in that offer, right? So it's 100% what we do. Courtney laid out the offer here, and we're going to go through it together because she did a pretty good job, but it can be way, way better. So this video is going to serve two purposes. One is going to be a lesson on how to construct offers the right way. Two is going to be how to do it the best way possible and how to take something that's pretty good and make it great. Because yeah, you could take a bunch of components of your offer and your program that maybe you didn't realize had value, and you can lay them all out on paper. People say that this would, the nutrition alone would cost you $300. This would cost you $300. This would cost $300. But there's often, in the way that you present it, it's not just the price, but also the way you present it and what it's called, and a little bit of branding, and even a little bit of embellishment, can go a long way in getting someone to really see the value of your program, and as a result become a much better client. One of the things you need to understand, and this can be very, very difficult for gym owners to overcome, because gym owners are often like, I would say they're very authentic people, right? They're very like tough love kind of people. Most gym owners, like they've lived their whole life coaching people and like telling people the way it is and being very, very direct. Those same people sometimes can struggle a little bit with embellishment and also struggle a little bit with sales, right? And it's because they often have sales positioned in their own minds the wrong way. At the end of the day, if what you do helps people more than what the cost of the program or the product is, if that money in their pocket is worth more than the program is and the outcomes they're going to get, then yeah, you're taking advantage of people, right? If something is $500 and you're only going to give them $300 worth of value, then that's a scam, right? 100%, right? But most gym owners see their program as infinitely valuable, right? That's what they say anyway. But it's clear that there may be some disbelief there, because whenever we get a gym owner to try to sell something for $500 or $1,000 they're used to selling for $150, they struggle with it. They feel like a little bit of embellishment, a little bit of value building. They feel like a little bit of salesmanship is a bad thing. But the only reason why you think it's a bad thing is, again, because you don't think it's worth the money, right? So if you have that mental block, then that's something you need to work on, because I know at my gym, it was, because I had a background in sales, and I've sold millions of dollars worth of things in my life. And out of the tens of thousands of people who sold and the probably hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue generated off of my sales, I've only ever had, like on less than one hand, the number of people come back to me and say that I took advantage of them in some way. And almost always in those situations, there's a story to tell as to how they got to that conclusion. And half the time, they were just unreasonable people that, maybe I shouldn't have sold them, right? I probably should have just told them, hey, this isn't a good time. But, sometimes when you're in the flow of things and someone says yes, it happens, right? I would say, counting less than one hand, the number of occasions that's happened out of tens of thousands of people, I would say, that I have everybody's best interest in mind when saying, because it's probably a 99.x% rate of success and positive customer feedback in my sales. That's allowed me to become incredibly successful and make a lot of money, while also giving a lot of people a whole lot more value than what they paid for. At my gyms, we had, 1,000+ people in the years I did it have major life shifts. I mean, I'm talking about like become completely different people as a direct result of the programs we ran, the friends they made, the community they were involved in, their own inner self beliefs within our program. I have people that still message me to this day, 5 years after owning my last gym, that thank me for the time they spent at my gym, because they'll see me post what I'm doing now and they say, hey man, I've been watching you, I'm super proud of you. So I want to let you know that time I spent with you working at my gym was life-changing and I'm super grateful for you. I still still get those messages to this day. One of the greatest things, right? So at the end of the day, when I know if I can have that kind of effect on people, I'm not going to hold back when it comes back to a little bit of persuasion, a little bit of embellishment, a little bit of sales, because frankly, people need it, because people are skeptical, right? People are skeptical. So they need to be sold, right? So let's dive into Courtney's here and let's talk about, what's great about it and what we can do better when it comes to offer construction, right? And this is something that, like, before you even sit down to talk about the sales process, which I will say, in order to sell this, you do need to have what's called a consultative or prescriptive sales process, right? You cannot be an order taker, right? So another belief to break, or process to break, that a lot of gyms do is the way that they bring people into their gym is when someone comes in, whether it be walk-in or appointment, they just have them do a class, right? Or they spend 5 minutes showing them around and they show them the prices and they say, which one you want, right? And quite often those people do sign up, right? But they sign up for what is kind of like the standard barrier to entry price, right? Most gym owners will say, okay, our membership's $175 a month. We have a 6 month for $150. The person says, I'll take $150, right? Now, anytime sales is that easy, anytime you're getting 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 yeses, that means you are leaving enormous amount of opportunity on the table, right? That means that customer probably would have paid 2, 3, 4x as much if they were sat down with a consultative and prescriptive sales process that help build value and help them make a decision that would probably serve them even better on a program and offer that is more complete, and people will pay for it, right? We have gyms all the time that go from that kind of low barrier to entry kind of offer to a $1,200 front end offer. And when they do that, their close rate, even though they're selling something that's probably 5-6x the price, they don't see a 5-6x reduction in close rate. What they see is, instead of getting 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 yeses, they go from like that to like maybe a 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 yeses, right? So for a 500% gain in opportunity and outcome, they might only sacrifice 10 or 15% of the close rate, right? Now, that's called opportunity cost, right? And the opportunity cost of continuing to do the same thing the wrong way is going to cost you a lot of money if you don't do it this way, right? So this is the value stack here that this gym owner built using all our templates and all of our stuff that we give all of our clients. And you can see at the top, it starts with a 12-week training session. Now, mind you, this gym here is a Globo style gym. They're a gym that does 24/7 access, right? And that's actually what they're trying to sell the most of, is just clients that just pay them $33 a month forever and ever and ever, right? They're kind of based on that model of like high volume and low utilization. But they do also have personal training services as an upsell. They have small group training services as an upsell. And they have all the things inside of their gym, like body composition scanners. They have people that can do nutrition coaching, and they're not afraid of technology. They have all this stuff already in their gym, and they just aren't really monetizing it. They aren't really using it, right? The personal training is kind of an afterthought. They already have the people there to staff it, but they're not really selling a lot of it, because the only way the gym owners or the coaches get clients is to walk around the gym, spotting people and seeing if they can sell it to them. It's okay, but it's not really being leveraged as much as it could be, right? And again, mind you, their end game is to get tens of thousands of people paying $30 to $40 a month, right? And these gyms sometimes struggle the most with trying to figure out how to use really strong front end offers to sell more of that, right? So what they're going to do is they're going to use the resources they already have available, right? The personal trainers. They're going to use the small group training sessions they have available to them, already running in their gym. And they're going to place value on these things and bundle these things all together in a higher ticket offer, right? So weekly private training sessions, 12 weeks, right? This is 12 weeks. They're going to get one per week for 12 weeks at a price of $100 each. That's a $1,200 value, right? Straight up. And personal training, that's not even embellished, right? That's like probably low for personal training these days. I'd say most personal training I see at most premium gyms is $120 to $180 an hour. Sometimes more grassroots independent gyms might be closer to $70 or $80 an hour. So $100 is completely fair and right down the middle. And then next, 3 months of small group private training sessions, $890 in value. They're basically placing a value of 3 months at $297 a month on that, which is, again, probably towards the lower side for small group. Most small group in most markets is probably valued at about $400 a month to $500 a month for small group is what most gyms are selling that for, straight up, not even like inflating that. 24/7 Vector Fitness access. So this is where they're getting the 24/7 access included with this, which is really the thing that they want the person to stay on for in the long run. If they can sell them more personal training, great. If they can sell them more small group, that's great. But really, if they can get them in this ongoing, that's where they get a lot of their average client value. And that's also the lowest cost to service client, because it's someone that doesn't even have a cost of service. They just come in and use the space, right? Weekly body composition scans. So they're going to use their in-body scanner, and they're going to give them in-body scans every week at a value of $50 a week for 12 weeks. That's $600 value. There's 3 months of custom habit-based nutrition coaching, right? So they're doing $300 times 300. That's very fair price for nutrition coaching. I mean, most online nutrition coaches that aren't even doing it in person, they're doing it over a Zoom call from their living room in their underwear, are charging $300 to $400 to $500 a month. This is something you're going to do in person, I'm guessing, and then they're going to get a new prescription every month with that $300. along with the bi-weekly accountability check-ins down here, which are basically one every week for the 12 weeks, I believe is what that's priced at. So, you got the value there, $300 a month times 3 months. App access, they're getting app access. So what we do is we give the gyms access to the Atomic Nutrition Coaching model. It's basically a business model for gyms to plug and play a nutrition coaching program. We give you all the templates, we give you all the systems for it, we give you the app as well, that you actually own the app and white label it to your customers, your members, and they basically go and follow it along, and it has all the messaging and check-ins and automates everything for you, right? So they do that, and they charge that $199 a month for access to that, right? Bi-weekly accountability check-in calls, right? $594 value based on those bi-weekly calls. So that's one call every 2 weeks. For 12 weeks, that's 6 calls at $90-something a piece, $99 a piece. That's $100 per call, which is very fair for a check-in call. $594, right? All necessary shopping lists and recipe guides, $99 value, and then member-only FB group and access to our amazing community and staff, priceless. Add all that together, and you're getting a $4,582 value, right? So pretty good, not bad at all. This is kind of like, I would say, probably pretty close to like our base template. Great starting point. For a lot of gyms have a lot of success doing just this, right? $4,582 value. And then they're going to sit down and they're going to present the Gym Offer Codex, which is how do you want to launch? And you can get this 12-week program, not for $45.82, but for $21.95 for everything mentioned. This is 12-week complete experience premium launch. Or you can do a 4-week version for $579, right? Now, what you wouldn't believe is you get almost 100% close rate when you do this, because you went from this huge kind of blow their minds price that they did not come in. Because the idea is when you sell this, when you list this off, when you go over this with them, is to make their brains swell with value and also have them kind of a little bit almost ready to walk out the door because they're like, I did not come in, this is way too much money, right? Like, and just really selling, and you have to believe it. You don't just run through this. You have to have the self-belief in your program, what you built, that it is worth this. And I just went over what this stuff costs in the market to show you that it is indeed realistic, right? So they can then use that anchor to make the perceived value of your actual program very reasonable, right? And in this case, the 4-week version, insane value, right? Because they're like, I can't afford $21.95, but I can do $597 right now, right? And for that, they get 12 small group sessions. They don't get any private training. So you're taking away a couple of the things, but they're getting most of the value, right? Here, okay? So this is pretty good. And I love the effect that it even has on me in going through it and explaining it, that this is very justifiable and reasonable value for what we started off with here and what they're getting, right? But you want to sell the heck out of this and build the value in this. So when you present this, it's like just instant yes, yeah, take my card, right? Okay, now I'm gonna show you how we can do it even better. So I'm gonna kind of like, because Courtney asked me here to kind of like, how can we do it? I would love your thoughts on the stack. How can we do it better, right? And this is the benefits of being in the Big Little Gyms Pro group, is she gets to ask us and get feedback from myself and other gym owners in the program. Let me go ahead and just pull up what notes I made prior to this. Okay, so kind of where we would start off by addressing what would be considered like what we call the gap, the perceived gap. So what really makes this work is when you go from this 45.82 to this 21.195, is you're only really looking at a 2.08% gap, right? So a little bit more than 2x gap between the perceived value, total value, and your price today, right? In the mind, a 2x gap is not, I mean, yes, it is a deal. It is half off. That is substantial in their minds, but the gap is actually like, you want more like a 4 to 5x gap, right? So anytime you go with a high ticket offer, you ideally want at least a 4 to 5x gap, so the client feels like they're getting an unbelievable deal. If it's a 2x gap, it kind of doesn't feel like, gosh, I got to do this today. Otherwise, like I'm walking away from an incredible opportunity. You want to get as close as you can to that 4 to 5x gap, which can be a little tricky, right? You know, at the end of the day, you don't want to embellish too much. You want to make sure it's believable, right? So let's go into some of the details and talk about how we can increase the gap here, right? So why the gap feels small, right? The values are justified well, math-based, but some line items are undervalued compared to market perception, right? So example, the app access at $199 that they have it here at $199, right? This is coming in a little low, right? This could easily be a $499 piece. I mean, these days, premium software, premium SaaS products are valued like that, right? Software is no longer a $7 a month thing, right? When it comes to custom software that's personalized and it's individualized attention and a direct line of communication with you and your coach, $499 plus, if positioned as a tracking and coaching portal, is much more believable, right? Next, the small group immersion, as I kind of mentioned before, could be reframed closer to $1,500, right? If you anchor it closer to $500 a month instead of $497, still very much in line with premium small group training options in most markets, right? And the truth is, like, here's the thing. Most people sitting in front of you have never done a premium small group coaching session. So they don't even have a basis for comparison, right? They don't even know what that is, right? So whether you put it at $297 or $497, at the end of the day, it's going to elicit the same reaction because they don't know what it is because they haven't done it anywhere else. And at the end of the day, it's still going to get the same perceived value. And at the end of the day, you're going to come off that value anyways with your today only price. And that's going to help create a bigger disparity, right? Accountability calls at $594 could easily be $900 if you anchor them as consults at $150 each, right? Personalized attention when it comes to one-on-one, like that's that person's time. They're not doing anything else but talking to you at that time. And in the age of inflation, I mean, those kinds of things are easily justifiable at that price, right? I would also say one thing that you could do that's incredibly valuable in the way that this is positioned is take some of the components of the offer. In this case, she's got everything here kind of on equal basis as different components, right? Like these are all kind of perceived as equal components of the offer, and they just descend in price as you go on. The trouble with that is as you go down the list, it kind of like they start to get into like the weeds of these really small offers here, and it kind of feels a little nickel and dimey, right? So an easy way to change that is to take some of these lower cost ones and turn them into bonuses, right? Rather than them being part of the offer, these are additional things, even though they are things that are normally part of your offer, that we're giving you as bonus, right? These are things that we're giving you as part of this offer today, right? So a very easy way to shake this up here for you and break out some of those items as bonuses, right? So we have it here on this Google Doc here. I'm just gonna start from the top, core program, the private coaching, the first line here, weekly private training sessions, right? We go into that. Before we call it just 12 weeks of personal training. Now, I'm also gonna talk about branding a little bit here. Branding each of these components gives it a lot more weight and value than just saying it's 12 weeks of this service, right? It's kind of like saying, oh, you're getting pepperonis on your pizza and the pepperonis are made from a pig, right? You could also say that it's this delicious tender meat from the belly of the pig that adds immense amount of flavor and juice to the pizza, right? Like it just has it's obviously sensationalized and kind of ridiculous, but which ones, if you were having someone sell you on a slice of pizza, which one would you rather they say? You'd be much more attracted to someone talking about the quality of the pepperonis and the more positive nature of eating the pepperonis, right? Kind of a crazy analogy that just came to mind, but nonetheless, it works, right? So rather than saying 12 weeks of personalized training, we're calling this the one-to-one individualized coaching experience, right? At a $1,200 value. And how we're going to read that off is we're going to break it down to what I call the ridiculous, right? 12 weeks of private coaching and individualized programming designed around your unique needs, ensuring every step is optimized for you. That's 12 one-hour sessions at a value of $100 each, fair market value. That's $1,200 for 3 months, right? So you're really breaking down the value for them to see that it's real, right? Small group training, 3 months of unlimited small group training, right? That's what we're calling it here. Right? 3 months of unlimited small group training sessions. Again, kind of bland, kind of is what it is, right? Instead of doing that, we're going to rebrand it. And again, this is just an advanced level tip to even make this seem better. 3 months of our small group training immersion program, right? At $890 value, right? 3 months of structured coach-led sessions of 2 to 4 clients that combines group dynamics with individual oversight, normally $297 a month times 3 at $890. And in this case, we could even go to $497 a month of perceived value. And now we're at $1,490, right? We're at $1,490 over $1,500, right? If you go up in that value, but this is how we're breaking it down for them. This is the things we're saying as we're presenting it, right? Body composition scans, weekly body composition scans with consults, right? This is what we were saying before. This is now called the Precision Progress Protocol, right? It's not, when you say weekly body scans with consult, it sounds like they're about to go to the doctor's office to stand on a scanner, which nobody wants to do. Instead, it's called the Precision Progress Protocol, and that includes, for $600, weekly body composition assessments with consults that provide precise data and prescriptive adjustments to keep your progress on track. That's 12 scans plus consults at $50 each, right? I think we could take these up to $100 each, which would then make it $1,200. Right? So we're there, enhance that pricing there. Nutrition coaching for 3 months. The Atomic Habit, so that's what it says right here, nutrition coaching for 3 months. Again, kind of sounds bland, kind of sounds basic. The new name is the Atomic Habits-Based Nutrition Prescription, right? A tailored nutrition system with updated prescriptions as your progress evolves, right? $300 for 3 months, that's $900 for total over the 3 month period. And then accountability calls, bi-weekly accountability calls is what we called this before. Now it's the bi-weekly progress consults, right? Consults just sounds way more exclusive and high end than calls does. $594 value, bi-weekly progress consults designed to identify challenges early and prescribe course corrections that keep you moving forward. That's 6 calls over 3 months at $99 each for a $594 value, right? Okay, now those are the core components of the offer, right? Those are the things that we got to service them on. Accountability calls, nutrition coaching, body composition scans, small group training, and coaching, right? That's the top, 5 lines here where really like the work of it is for the gym owner and the gym, right? Now we're going to take these bottom things, those things that just have lower more perceived value, the app access, the bi-weekly accountability check-ins, and even the 24/7 access. We're going to take and we're going to turn those into bonuses, because now that makes them even more valuable, right? And ideally what happens is the value of the bonuses is worth the price you're going to be charging today, right? You want to get the value of the bonuses worth what the price of the program is going to be charged today, right? So in that case, we go down here and we go to line number 5, or line number, next line, we have a bonuses line, right? We make these bottom ones about app access to our app. Instead, we change that to the Pocket Accountability Coach program, right? And again, this can easily be a $4.99 value for this, because this is not a app only. This is your direct line of communication with your coach, with your, with all your content in it, right? With all your IP that you've developed, or in the case of working with Big Little Gyms, you would get the Atomic Nutrition program as the IP to use as you see fit to give to them. That's a $1 million program, okay? Bonus number 2, shopping and recipe guides. So rather than the shopping recipe guides, it's just be listed, and here's another thing they get that just kind of feels like you're nickel and diming the value. It's now a bonus, right? And now it has a bonus of like, and we're going to give you, instead of shopping list and recipe guides, the done for you fuel guide, right? And this can also, I think, be inflated. I think this could easily be a $2.99 value. You can easily charge $100 a month for this times 3 months, right? And the description on that is a done for you shopping list with recipe guides that make nutrition execution simple, fast, and stress-free, a standalone package normally at $2.99. right? And then your community access, right? That's also in here, just kind of described as priceless, right? Which it is. For a lot of gyms, the community is priceless. It's hard to put a price on that, right? Now, it's hard to approach. How do we place a value on it, right? The Inner Circle Community Access. Instead of private Facebook group, it's the Inner Circle Community Access, right? $9.97 value. In your description for this, how we justify the value there is, this is a members-only access to a professional coaching community where peers and staff provide ongoing support and accountability. We don't even sell this access to the community on its own. It's for members of this gym only. But if we did, we wouldn't charge less than $9.97 for it. That's how valuable it is to have the right environment and peers in your corner every day, right? I love the way you take things that are hard to quantify and you say, if we don't even sell this access, you can't even get it. It's exclusive. You have to be a member. But if we did, this is what we charge. So that's the price and value we're placing on it because you get it as a paying member, right? So you get that. Bonus number 3. And then bonus number 4, which is the thing that they want the most, is the 24/7 gym access, right? So 24/7 gym access, the 24/7 Platinum All Access Pass, instead of it just being called 24/7 gym access, it's the branded name is the 24/7 Platinum All Access Pass to Vector Fitness and Nutrition, right? $100 value. This is round the clock access to professional grade facilities, equipment, and community. So your training never stops, no matter your schedule. Normally $33 a month times 3, $100 for 3 months, right? Now, again, I think the price of this can be embellished a little bit. This is really low and almost kind of makes it seem cheap, right? Now, maybe you do charge $33 a month for it, and that is the real price of your program. But again, what is that really worth? 33 is kind of an insane price for access to any gym, right? What should that really be worth? Probably more like $100 or $200 a month, right? So I would probably place the value on this closer to $300 for 3 months, right? They don't need to know that the price that they would actually pay ongoing is 33, right? You can always tell them that afterwards. Oh, you're going to stay on as a member? Great. Guess what? It's not $100 a month. It's only $33 a month because you did our front end program, right? So now that we break all this down, what is our new grand total, right? So let's just go ahead and add it up real quick because my math on the sheet here is not accurate. So we're just going to pull up a calculator and we're going to add it up. We've got 1,200 here plus 890 here plus 600 here plus 900 here plus 594 plus 499 plus 299 plus 997 plus 300. And now we are at 6279, right? 6279, right? Okay. And again, when we go to make the offer, you're not going to pay that today. As someone who came in here today to do this consult, you can do it for $21.95, right? So $21.95, if we do the math on that, 62.97 divided by $21.95, it's almost a 3x, I believe. Yeah, 2.86x. So now you're at a gap, perceived gap, almost 3x. Okay, so we're doing better. And the closer we get to 4 to 5x, the higher the close rate will be because that inflated value is going to create a larger perceived gap, even if they didn't believe it, right? You'd be amazed how many people say like, yeah, I don't even know if that's worth that, but you know, the value just seems so great, or like just the personal training alone seems like it's worth the value. That's the idea, right? Is you're trying to make it so any one piece of the program alone is worth the value in its own, right? Any one of those services above are worth that in its own, which in this case it kind of is, because if you look at just the personal training and the small group training, that alone is the $2,100 they're charging today. Everything else is basically free, right? But you can't get there unless you take the time to build the value, right? When you take time to build the value, people say yes, right? So, you know, this is where we can do some work, right? We can work even on the private coaching. I think it's probably reasonable to say you could do a perceived value of $150 on the 12 weeks of personal training. which would take the value up another 12 times 150, another $600 out of the stack, you get closer to 3.5x perceived value, right? Because again, you're not going off what you would normally charge. You're going off what the market's perceived value of something is. And if you're a more premium offering, then of course you can afford to lay your perceived value over what premium offer pricing is, right? There are gyms out there in almost every market charging $200 a month for personal training. That they're obviously the most premium options. If you don't consider yourself that, then obviously don't price that. But you can use that as a market comp to value your services, right? It's no different from buying a house or buying a car. The way houses and cars are priced on the resale market is based on market comps, right? When you go to price a house on the market, you don't just, because you lived in it, you might not see it as that valuable. You might be like, oh, I live in this house, it's kind of beat up. The plumbing needs repaired. There's a few things here and there. You know what? The market says they're worth $1 million, but I'm only going to ask 500,000. You would be ignorant to do that, right? Like, no, you still, even with all those things, would price the house at probably 98% of the market's value, because at the end of the day, it's the value, the outcome you get out of the house, the land, which there is only so much of, right? Just like in coaching, in gyms, your time is valuable. Private training, it's someone's time, it is valuable. The outcomes are immensely valuable in that you can change someone's life, right? You can take someone and turn them from dud to stud. You can take someone who's feeling down on themselves, seeing themselves as worthless, doesn't even have perceived value over themselves, but because you sold them this, they say I'm worth it, they do the work, they show up and get the results because they paid premium prices and see you as a perceived high value program, and they get a result that is, I don't know what value you would place on changing that mindset for someone, but I would place a 7 to 8 figure value on it, right? Like I would place, if you ask most people that have lived most of their life, and if their life has been kind of miserable, what they would pay to go back in their life and to shift that worldview to one of more positivity, positive outcomes, and prioritizing themselves a little bit more, most of them would say they would trade everything they've ever made times over to have it, right? I guarantee it, right? Of course, on the internet, there'll be naysayers and say something obvious, but it's hard to change the minds of people that are, in a glass half empty mindset. Of course, they're not going to look at it as even being a possible thing, right? But it's different when you get in front of people in person and you go over these things and they place that value on themselves, right? So when we do this, what happens is we go from trying to sell a $150 thing for $79 to get people to try to start, or sell a $79 thing for $10 to try to get them to start. Now we're positioning ourselves as a subservient value provider, right? Here at Big Little Gyms, for example, we will not position ourselves as a subservient value provider. There are already enough people and gurus out there in the gym world that underprice themselves and are not very good at what they do, that will discount their services and products and give it away for free to entice gym owners to work with them just so they can get a few months of business out of them. There's agencies that will do this. They'll discount their services. We won't do that, because at the end of the day, what we work on is transformation of the business, not fixing any one component, whether it be marketing or sales or just offers or whatever. We're looking at it as a flywheel, as a collective whole that works together in unison. So when a gym owner does business with us, if a gym owner, if they're a prospect and they come into our funnel and they start talking down to us, we will literally just not respond. We will just stop responding to them. In fact, little story, we had a gym owner do that recently. And in fact, that gym owner is the dad of a very, very well-known CrossFit Games athlete, probably one of the top 5 most well-known CrossFit Games athlete. And they have a gym together, him and his dad. And his dad, I guess, is probably, I'm guessing the principal of that business and not the gym, not the CrossFit Games athlete themselves. But when I first saw the name, I was like, oh, this is really cool. And then we started reaching back out to kind of ask, hey, what's the current situation? What's the desired situation? And he cut us off and said,
enough of that crap. I need 30 members in the next, 60 days and we're going to be in trouble. Can you help me or not? Enough of that bullshit.
Right. That's what he said to us. And I'm sure in his mind, he probably thinks that that's very authentic. And I'm sure in his mind, he probably thinks, enough of this BS. I'm going to cut straight. And that's probably because he's been overpromised to and underdelivered by a lot of other gurus along the way. And they probably spoke to him very similar to how we do. Right. So he's putting us in that same bin and talking to us in a very subservient way. In fact, he's framing us as if his problems are now going to be ours. His problem of having made bad decisions and who he works with, likely because he undervalues the skill set of marketing and sales, because most gym owners do. They don't themselves know how to sell and market. So when they go and look for marketing and sales, they often get sold by people that are very inauthentic, because, at the end of the day, when their back's against the wall, if they don't know how to do it, they're going to hire the first person that makes a big promise to them, right? Versus understanding these systems well enough, which is why I share these videos with you guys. If that person understands the systems well enough, they're going to know whether this person is blowing smoke up their butt or not. And they're going to know whether or not that person is authentic and be able to provide the outcome they're talking about, right? You don't want to do the same with your gym. You don't want to position yourself as a subservient offering, right? You don't want to be like, oh, we'll give you everything for $10 a month, even though we're normally $150, so you can try all of our stuff and hopefully stay. And then the whole time you're pandering to them and you're trying to be nice to them and you're trying to like introduce them to people, and it just looks weak. It just looks weak. Versus doing this, which is called selling from strength, right? What you're doing is you're building the immense value, the true value of your program and what it's worth and the outcomes and all they get. And then you're showing them, this is our regular price for this, and this is what you're going to pay today, and it is an immense value, right? And when you get that, what do people do? They just lay down, right? They just lay down because like it's what we used to call them in the gym, in the car business. Because when we had someone come in and we had a car that was like in very high demand, say we got in like a very rare Ferrari on trade and we had it on the lot, and it was a car they only made so many of, right? And a car that is like so oversold on media, on TV, and just a very coveted car that's placed on a pedestal. When that person comes in, they just lay down, right? Like you get to hold the cards because you have the Ferrari, right? I have the Ferrari. You're the one who wants it, just like the other 1,000 people that have called in the last 2 days. This is our price. Oh, and by the way, in order to buy that car, you also have to buy the paint protection film. You also have to buy, the security system. And I too hate when businesses do, when car dealerships do that. But when they have the thing that you want, who holds the power in that situation, right? Who holds the power? Who gets to dictate the value, right? It's the difference between a seller's market and a buyer's market, right? So are you positioning your business as one that lives in the buyer's market where like they get to call the shots? Or are you positioning your business in a seller's market where like you have the Ferrari, you have the thing everybody wants, you get to dictate the price, but you have to build the value, right? The reason why the Ferrari gets the money and can command those prices is because the outcome of the Ferrari, the perceived status that person will get, it will overcome so many shortcomings and lack of status in their life just by making this one purchase, to have this one car that no one else has. That's what it will do. And if you paint the outcomes of what you do at your gym and how it gets on those outcomes, the real things, right? The status outcomes of being a fitter person, being more attractive, being someone that does hard things and people know that about you, being a person who does hard work and shows up to the gym every day, no matter what happens in their life. The perceived status of that comes with the result at your gym, if you sell it and you break down the components of how you're going to get there and what they would cost monetarily if they went out and tried to do that themselves instead of at your one place. If you do that, again, they will just lay down, which is the main point of that whole story. All right, guys. So that's my video here. This is how you build value. Go out there and crush it and have a good day. Bye.